Previously on the Game On podcast.
The big one that's come out this week is the umpiring, with holding the ball being the big one. The week before was obviously the distance the ball has either travelled to be a mark and also the running before a bounce or after a bounce, etc., etc. The umpires have been in the firing line the last couple of weeks, but this holding the ball one seems to be the biggest one that frustrates every supporter and every player, it seems like, in the AFL.
Now, let's just see, though, if they panic and go way too hard and all of a sudden it's 8 million holding the balls being paid. So it's going to be interesting. The big thing we've all said, because they've been letting it go so long, it does increase the chance of the tackle and the sling tackle because they've let it go too long. So that way I think it's good to see. But for mine, I just want to see what happens this week.
You see what's going to happen on Thursday night. Yeah. They're going to go massively hard on it. Then they'll correct it for the Friday night. And then by the rest of the weekend, it'll be a mixed bag of both. So
I think that's fair call.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch, and it's very unusual that the AFL are making changes mid-season with a lot of these things as well. And I know it's an interpretation issue; it's not a rule or a law change or a rule change as such, but it's an interpretation change.
I think
very
it's
unusual.
more. I think it's because there've been so many shown that. Hang on, the guy's been spun and he's done a 360. Well, that's holding the ball. So maybe a little bit more common sense, but I'm just worried that if the ball getter is going to get pinged ruthlessly, I hate that. I'd much rather.
You should always.
I've got in the back and over the shoulder is still in the laws of the game.
Yep.
And yet they very rarely get paid.
Is that a chance to keep the ball moving though?
I just think you should be protecting the guy getting the ball far more. Yep. That's my own.
So the guy who's actually hunting the ball is now going to be penalised a lot heavier.
That's the way it reads at the moment. So let's just wait and see, but that's my worry.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
All right, and welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, once again, joined by Malcolm. And the big topic, obviously, last week was talking about the umpiring decisions. And how did you see the way it panned out for the umpiring? We did get some controversial calls, but it is going to take a couple of weeks to adjust, isn't it?
From what I saw, I thought it was a bit better. Just letting it go too far, which, as we said, was contributing to the sling tackles and that side of things. So I thought it was slightly better, but yeah, I've got more problems with the whole AFL, the 4 umpire system, the positioning, the stupidity of sending umpires out to the boundary line and not be in the corridor so you can get to the angle as an umpire. So, but yeah, I thought it was slightly better.
We might get you on the rule book rant next week about the umpiring and positioning and bits and pieces like that. So we might leave that in your capable hands, a bit of homework. All right, mate. Let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, and today, as per usual, we're going to talk the SANFL, the SANFL W cricket, and our special guest today, past player, past legend, Greg Blewett. So really looking forward to that interview. But let's kick off with the AFL, and let's kick off with Port Adelaide in particular. First up, I'm going to play you a little grab, mate, and let's see what you think.
Reminds me of the expectation of Port Adelaide people. And when I say this, I can remember on occasions that we weren't playing the Port Adelaide way. So you come in at half time, and I distinctly remember Jack going off at us and said, Who do you think you're fooling? He said, these people have been watching football for 100 years. They know whether you take short steps. They know whether you come off the line. They know whether you don't back with courage. Who do you think you're fooling? And that's pretty much what we've heard tonight from nearly every caller about a lot of players. You keep your body in line. You win those one-on-ones. You smash in harder because you want it more. And that's what's not happening.
Obviously, Timmy G, a previous guest of ours, and obviously talking on Radio 5AA there for the audio grab that we did. Very passionate man, obviously, Timmy, about Port Adelaide, but he's right, isn't he, that Port Adelaide have just sort of lost their way a little bit because, once again, you're getting a familiar result against a top 8 team.
It's interesting, though, that I think that was... Footy still has changed. For mine, I am still very much, when it's your turn to go, you go. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of players who don't. Mm-hmm. And it just seems to now be, I accepted that that's an inside player or an outside player. Personally, I think that's bullshit.
Yep.
But that's the way footy's become.
Yep. Where to for Port Adelaide from here? Because obviously, again, they just can't quite get the result. Do they need to be entirely healthy for them to progress any further?
Yeah, look, let's also remember that Rosie didn't play. Now, he's one of their best 3 players. We know that. Mm-hmm. We know they rely on the dynamic 3 in the middle.
Zach Butters didn't get a possession for 17 minutes in that last quarter, and that was telling because Walsh and Cripps went absolutely nuts in that time there. And that's what – I'm not saying that's what cost them, but that's what really shut Port Adelaide out of the game. And just looking at it from a last quarter point of view is that Carlton kicked 7-goal-1 to 1-goal-2 from stoppages. Yeah. That's a huge result.
Oh, it was massive. Soldo apparently went in under a cloud in terms of he was crook, and then so they got beaten convincingly in the last quarter. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, for one thing, for mine, it's gradually starting to show again how important ruckmen are. And I think that ruck was almost the spot with, as long as the guy remotely competes and that. And
yeah, but players like Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy have changed that landscape.
Well, De Koning's a class act.
Yes.
And he just monstered Finlayson in the last quarter.
Yep.
And for mine, that was really important.
Did they make a mistake by dropping Jordan Sweet?
In terms of, it's an interesting... Soldo had only been back for 1. It's a maybe in that way, but then a guy's crook, he says, I'm okay.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about taking in underdone players a little bit later, but obviously Carlton getting the chocolates there by 36 points. Port recruited for the here and now. What's stopping them from progressing? Do they have all the pieces that they're after at the moment?
Well, that's the thing in terms of who they recruited. Let's be real. It wasn't like Radaglia was overly required at Geelong. The Zerk Thatcher, there were questions on at Essendon. Started the year very well for Port, and I, for one, was going, shit, he's better than recruit. I thought.
Yep.
And he's fallen right away. So there seems to be such an enormous gap between his good and his bad.
Yep.
And that's always a problem. You need a player in the middle.
Yes. Does that mean that have they recruited players that were available that they had hoped to develop?
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yeah. I just come back for mine, for Port. If those 3 are up and going, I think the one thing, though, is they probably need a dry ground and probably day games for those 3 as well. And then that completely changes them up. But I think the other thing too, though, Father Time catches up.
Yes.
And I think it's caught up and gobbled Charlie Dixon. And I think it's virtually there with Travis Boak as well.
We were going to talk about that in a minute, but I reckon we're going to talk about it right now in the Dixon dilemma, I'm calling it. Yeah. Because what do they do with Charlie Dixon? Because they seem to be better when he's playing, but if he's not playing well or well enough, then they've got a bit of a problem. When you've got Marshall, who's looking to probably take the number 1 mantle, you've got Georgiadis, sort of starting to find his feet in the AFL. So they've got some ready-made forwards. Do they pull the trigger and go, Charlie, we're only using you if we absolutely need you at the moment?
Well, that's the way it looks in terms of that. Because with Charlie, it was like Franklin still, where Buddy was obviously a class above Charlie. We know that.
Yes.
But he's just sheer presence and demand the ball. And I think Port just go through Dixon too much when he's playing. They seem to be
Very
less
predictable.
less predictable without him.
Yes.
And Marshall does seem to be better without him.
Yep.
So at the moment, you'd say Lord's just coming back.
Well, that was going to be my next question about Port Adelaide, in that Lord looks like he's on his way back. What do they do with Finlayson? Because he's a player that still has some value, but where? That's my question for Port Adelaide at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think they really probably know that either. And look, we obviously wish him the mammoth best. What's going on off the ground, which is way more important.
Yep.
So you also wonder how that comes in the equation. Because let's face it, that mentally that'd be a nightmare.
Yep, absolutely. And Port will obviously manage that as it goes along. Last question, sort of on Port Adelaide at the moment. Did Michael Voss outcoach Ken Hinkley? Does he rely on the fab sort of 3 or 4 a little too much at times?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've been one who's always been a Hinkley fan, but at the moment, you haven't got headphones on. So he really seems to be more the urger of the players, speak to the players, encourage us to come off the ground. He's not doing the game day coaching from the bench and not communicating with the other coaches.
That's a good observation, actually.
So for mine at the moment, you'd almost say it's more car and all that. I still say Port Adelaide last year at the end of the season, Nathan Bassett was unlucky enough that his contract was due for renewal.
Yes.
And the fact that they virtually went, shit, we've bombed out in straight sets again. We have to do
Someone's
something.
The scapegoat.
And Bass became the scapegoat.
Yep.
I'm a mammoth Nathan Bassett fan.
As we all are, I agree.
But I just think, and I can't believe that Adelaide didn't speak to him.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, it's a benefit for Nord that he's there just sort of directing traffic. Is 8-4 an acceptable place for Port Adelaide to be at the moment?
I think they probably dodged a bit of a bullet with the other games.
We'll take the Hawthorn one as a classic example. To be sort of in the top 4. Last year, obviously, they got on a run and won, 13 in a row. That papered over some cracks. The Fab 4 or 3 or 4 papering over, that back line settling down. And their forward line just doesn't look right with Dixon, Marshall and Georgiadis in it at the moment. They all seem to be going to the same spots. But that's just me from an outside point of view.
I think also there has been some vision highlighted where Carlton really blocked. And it was interesting. They were facing the other way, away from the play, watching Farrell and Houston to make sure they cut off. So then all of a sudden Port weren't going through the lines. Cutting Houston off made them more static and predictable again. So it made them go probably through Dixon more. So it was a twofold effect.
Yes. Now, I know we're talking South Australian teams, but from a Carlton point of view, I thought Chin Cotter did a very, very good job on Butters most of the night.
He did, no doubt about that.
He went to Horn Francis a couple of times and did the job there too. So that was where it was won. Those little tactics that I think Voss did out coach Hinkley in on this occasion, and there'd be a lot out there that would agree with us and a lot that would disagree with us. But anyway, that's how it goes. All right, mate, let's move on to Adelaide.
I want to go on Adelaide. You can almost call this a rant as well.
Yep. All right. I'll let you take the floor on this one, and then I've got a whole heap of questions to ask.
But for mine, Adelaide Football Club, Riley O'Brien, Lockie Murphy, McHenry, Jones, they worship the honest battler.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who wins the Div 3 Reserves Best Team Man because he tries hard, turns up to every social function and sells the raffle book. For mine, that's Adelaide Football Club in a nutshell.
Right, so that's their DNA.
Yep, and it's crap. I hate it.
All right, so then my counter to that is that Matty Nix has obviously come from Sydney, where they needed to embrace that exact philosophy.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Is it a case of that Matty Nix knows that the Crows are coming from a long way back? Because remember the cull and the people leaving and all of that dirty word camp that happened obviously after the 2017 final. Is it a case that that is his DNA to help them be stable enough to then launch, or is this you see this being his DNA right the way through?
Yes and no. I agree. That makes perfect sense and all that. But it also comes back to your recruiting and your development coaching. Now, McHenry and Jones were top 12 draft choices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact that they're both honest battlers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what in the hell did you see them in as juniors, and what's gone wrong that there's been no progression?
But now we've talked about this at length off the field with under-18 championships and anti-density rules. And we could get into that for a whole nother hour. Is it a case of that potentially them making that step to the next level, they're not quite playing in the positions that they were at those levels when they were drafted?
I think that's I definitely agree with that. Pedler is a midfielder. For goodness sake, play him in the midfield, Adelaide.
Yes.
This high half-forward nightmare position.
Yes.
McHenry being played as purely the specialist, almost run, chase it like a dog, trying to keep the ball in the area, which is all Murphy's done for over 100 games.
Yep.
Grrr.
Yep.
Give them a shot in the midfield,
especially
at the moment now.
So
now they're gone. And again, Father Time, Brodie Smith.
Yep.
And yet, amazingly, it looks like he's going to continue next year where he's gone with a capital G.
Yeah. Now, going on from that, Dan Curtin, what do you do with Dan Curtin? Because they tried him in the back lines. He did look a little bit at sea at times, but then Adelaide's under a lot of pressure in that back line, no matter what way you look at it. Do they play him as a forward or a midfielder?
Well, I think what they gave up to pick him, and it cost a chance, a game for the future, etc. Who's now at North Melbourne. It was a huge call you've made there, and yet almost 6 months later, it's like, shit, not sure if we did the right thing there. They don't know what to do with him at the moment.
Crazy. We got our answers on the weekend with Adelaide against Hawthorn. They built it up as a pretty big game and unfortunately did not come through with the goods at all.
Oh, it wasn't even a contest. It was over 15 minutes into the game, effectively.
Crazy that Adelaide would do that. Too many passages once again, like you've talked about there. I think they just thought that 2024 was going to happen after 2023. That's what it looks like from the outside again.
Yeah,
we're not in the four walls.
I didn't have Adelaide in my 8. I looked at their list and I thought, no, I think they're still a long way away from other sides. That was my thought.
I had them just in the 8 on the basis that I had a couple of teams maybe just sliding out, and a couple have, but a couple have stepped up a little bit better than what we thought as well.
I'm not surprised, if I'm being ruthlessly honest, where Adelaide are at.
Well, that's going to be my next thing. Adelaide are going to end up, let's be totally honest here and not pull any punches. I know we're only at round, 13?
No, season's over.
I agree with you. Now, they're a bottom 4 side.
Yep.
And they need to start playing these kids. And I called for this a couple of weeks ago, that you've got to find out what you've got on your list and whether they can play at the level. Now, if that means that you've got to put a midfield together that stays together for the next 4 weeks, let's just use that as a bit of an example, and let them go. If they get smashed, they get smashed. If they try something a bit different. Michael Annie was the classic one on the weekend. For me, that was a positive move, that they tried something different. At least it was trying. Yeah. They tried something completely different, and obviously Max, we know what he can do down back. Give him a run on the ball for 5 or 10 minutes. It might actually be a good thing.
Yeah, how Dowling hasn't played so far for mine is probably almost a mystery of the season.
You've been a big one for that and have pointed that out to me, because I don't watch all of the games all of the time, but from what I have seen of him, I agree with you. I'm starting to come around to how he hasn't played yet. And Strawn's probably the other big one for me, is that 2 games and you've been on the list, 6 years, 7 years almost?
It's just unbelievable.
It's just crazy.
They've got to have a look at him, be brutally honest. Rucky's been Adelaide's biggest weakness since 2017, and they've just kept going with it. Riley O'Brien's not good enough.
Again, competed very well on the weekend, but
that's all he does though, is tries hard.
Yeah. You need that ruck tap to advantage. That's what I was trying to get out there.
But it's also the fact that he just battles in every single aspect of the game. The chance against Collingwood in that last 10 minutes, and the kick went 15 metres sideways.
Yep, bit of a worry. All right, let's stay on Adelaide. Got some burning questions. Tell me right now, what makes Adelaide a destination club? We talked about those players that might potentially be on the radar, but do they want to come when they're playing like this?
Certainly doesn't help. So you've got that. The fact still no club rooms, that doesn't – I don't think that's quite as big. I think,
No, but spiritual home is a spiritual home,
it
isn't
does help, but it's not like the old days where you're all drunk together and stuff like that.
Yep. Everyone back to the club and away you go, like the old shed. Josh Rochelle, where is he at? Has he improved, gone backwards, or
He's
stayed
gone backwards.
the same?
He's gone backwards.
But is it a case that he's confused on his role?
Possibly.
Because that's what it looks like to me.
Possibly, but it's interesting. Come back to our previous comment, when it's your turn to go, and there's been several times this year where he hasn't gone.
But he's still a young player, though. I know you got to put your head over the ball. And Timmy probably put it perfectly in our little grab that we had at the beginning there, that when it's your turn to go, you've got to go. That's something he'll learn from, and he sort of will.
There's big question marks where there wasn't at the start of the year. You're thinking, he's going to be a very good player. At the moment, you're going, not so sure.
Yeah, but he wanted to get into the midfield.
Yeah, and that's what he grew up as. I've got to play him there.
Yep.
I'm saying, let's look at the future. Play Pedler, Dowling, or Rochelle in the midfield. Yep. Laird, if you're going to play Rory Laird, it should be in the back line.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he won, 4 Best and Fairest at the Crows that way as well. So, why hasn't Adelaide learned to deal with the pressure? How can they improve this? Losing 6-2 to 1-1 from centre bounce clearances is clearly not acceptable, and that probably goes back to our point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Just really
6-2 to 1-1, and they lose by 27
points. That's the difference in the game, effectively.
Exactly right. Adelaide now have injuries that they wouldn't have wanted. Dawson, Walker, Crouch. Time for Adelaide to rethink their youth policy in playing them. Let's be honest, they will end up being in a bottom 4 spot this year, which, again, works out okay for draft picks. But look at what you've got on your list to either play or trade.
For mine, there are 3 lists at the moment. There's 4 lists. But North Melbourne, West Coast, we know they're coming from a long way back. North Melbourne, probably the big worry is they've got so much good youth, but it's not progressing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we fix that? How do we get a couple of experienced players in amongst it? All that. West Coast sold the farm for Kelly. That hasn't worked. So we know those 2.
Yes.
But for mine, the 2 lists who are in the most trouble anywhere are St Kilda and Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
They've just got so many honest battlers that they're just mediocre, middle of the run.
Does that get down to
lower end?
Game style then?
Both. Yep. Both in terms of game style and also just a lack of actual talent and a lack of development.
Would you put Richmond in that boat, or do you think that they've been a little bit cruelled by injury?
I think it's so hard to judge because they have been brutally, 5 ACLs. It's been incredible. So realistically, they're starting from a mile back again next year.
Yes, because 12 months is the general time for knees. So Adam Uze's got his work cut out for him, but I think he's done a pretty good job, and I've got a hot topic to talk about a little bit later, especially to do with Richmond. Last one on Adelaide. Clearly it's easy in hindsight to say that Sam Mitchell out-coached Matty Nix. Is it a case of that he did out-coach him, or was it a case of Adelaide got it wrong with some of their starting positions? Crouch on the bench as an example. Dawson playing underdone, looked like had to do a fitness test before the game actually started. So is it a case of that Mitchell out-coached Nix on the day, or are they building Hawthorn?
I think they are. To huge credit to Sam Mitchell that they threaded back. You think
their structure looks good.
Probably the bizarre one was letting go of Gunston and then getting him back again. That was quite weird.
Yep. Well, you talk about spiritual homes.
Yeah.
I mean, you win, 2 or 3 premierships with Hawthorn. You're probably going to want to come back there. But some's not right at Brisbane and there's something not right at Melbourne. Yeah. We'll obviously talk about that one there. Yeah. All right, mate, we're going to take a very, very quick break. We're going to go through the results and obviously some tips for this week, but we've also got some AFL hot topics to go through.
Are dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
We thank, obviously, Roger Steen there once again for his continued support of the podcast. And
Thank you to Craig. Yep.
Absolutely. And anybody out there looking to just help us out and keep this podcast going. And now that we've got the video stuff going, it certainly is helping that we can promote that. All right, let's whiz through a couple of results. Collingwood losing to the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, Collingwood again, just decimated by injuries. I admit, babysitting responsibilities Friday night, so I actually didn't see any of the game, was following it in the background.
Yes,
but
entertaining at times.
Yes, so, but yeah, just probably the Pies. You know, Pendlebury was almost the final straw, and just hammer. And if you actually go through, then in terms of games played,
Yes.
average at Collingwood at the moment,
It's dropping very quickly, isn't
it's
it?
huge difference.
Yep,
So yeah,
absolutely.
just too many injuries.
St Kilda just getting over the line against West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, I did see a reasonable amount of that game. Battle of two sides who are, run of the mill.
Yep.
Really.
I did want to talk about this one in some of our hot topics, but we'll talk about it now. Geelong just getting over the line against Richmond, who gave effort.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about effort versus talent.
Yep. And there's no doubt Richmond are having a big crack. Yeah, the lack of talent showed through there in the end. At half-time, it looked like, geez, this could be a major upset.
Yes.
But, yeah, they probably fell away. But Geelong down on confidence a bit, as we know, how much the sport's played above the years.
Yep.
Just came through in the end, and whether that's and then a build. They got Sydney, though, so that's a big game.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Richmond 3 weeks ago were lifeless. You talk about how Adelaide picked through West Coast a couple of weeks ago and almost made them witches' hats. Credit to Adam Uze. Richmond have responded quite well, and I thought, it was quite an entertaining game in the end. The big one for me was the Dockers winning by 92 points against Melbourne up in the red centre there.
Not a surprise that they won.
No,
but
but how?
That margin
But
is
how
just
as well?
huge. Yeah, and I don't think any of us could have seen Freo kicking that many goals in 2 weeks, let alone one. And so that, and against Melbourne, May, etc.
Yeah, but look at Melbourne's
incredible.
Fab 3 or Fab 4 in the middle, and they were made to look pedestrian, which is just, again, a bit like Brisbane. There's something not quite right at Melbourne. We did talk at the beginning of the year whether we thought some of the off-field stuff might come back at some stage of the year. We didn't quite see it with Melbourne, but maybe we are starting to see it now.
Yeah, who knows? Again, bizarre result.
Absolutely.
To that,
and then the big one that I was really invested in was the Gold Coast Suns v Essendon. Ended up being a cracking clash, and Suns got the job done at home, which we sort of half thought that would be the case.
It's a huge game now. It's probably the bit this week nearly becomes Gold Coast's biggest game in their history.
Yep. We'll talk about that one right now. We'll go there. We've got everybody playing this week, barring Port Adelaide and the Dockers, but Gold Coast v St Kilda at Marvel.
It's a game they should win.
Is a game, you're right.
On ability, Gold Coast win that game. If Gold Coast don't win, they're miles away because it's then such mental. Because they should beat St Kilda on pure talent, especially if Max King doesn't come up.
Good call. All right, let's talk about some of the other results there. Adelaide v Richmond Thursday night here at the Adelaide Oval. I know we're recording a touch earlier, so we're not going to see the teams, but I don't see Dawson coming up. I don't think Adelaide should be taking a risk with him, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't have thought. You can't see Dawson, Crouch or Walker playing.
Yep.
So
Crouch is now out for the season.
Crouch's out for the year. But those three, you can't see any of them playing.
Yep.
Richmond again, though. Now, Martin has officially been ruled out this morning because they want to play his 300th at home.
And do you think, and I've got this on my hot topics, so we'll talk about it now, question without sort of notice. Do you think that's the right thing, that a player gets to pick and choose? I know he's a decorated player. Look, 3 Norm Smiths and...
It was actually, I did see a debate, and it was, I can't remember now who it was, in terms of, and it was 2-1 in the end. My bit is, the problem is, once you're out of it, which Richmond and Adelaide are, you're almost penalised for winning because you want to finish the lowest you can for the best draft choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how we've gone to so much American stuff, but that's one area where we haven't, where they do the draw out of a
lottery.
Lottery,
the
so
draw
you've
lottery,
got so many balls in if you finish that spot and all that. Well, I think in some ways that's actually a better system because, the classic at the moment is North Melbourne going, deep down we're going, why in the hell did we win that last game last year, which meant nothing, and it's cost us Harley Reid.
Mm-hmm.
Not only Harley Reid in terms of the player he would have helped North Melbourne, the marketability, the desire, making North Melbourne a desirable place to go to, all that sort of thing.
Would North Melbourne have been in that position, though, if Jason Horne-Francis had stayed? Question without notice.
In terms of, no, they still may well have finished bottom anyway.
But
geez,
could you imagine both of them
together?
Cool.
Wow.
With Harry Sheasel as well. Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's a scary proposition, isn't it? List management really then comes into play, doesn't it? The Bulldogs v the Lions, Marvel Stadium on Friday night. This one is intriguing.
It's a big game as
intriguing
well.
for every reason that you can think of.
Yeah, at the moment, you probably fancy Bulldogs there, but Brisbane did beat them there last year. So, toss of the coin, but if Brisbane do lose, they're officially gone. Mm-hmm. I think they're probably gone anyway.
Yep.
But officially, you'd say yes then. So, it is a big... either team loses, it's virtually the end of the year.
Yep. Hawthorn v the Giants?
Again, on talent, you're going Giants. But on youth and having a crack, Hawthorn a big chance.
Like I said a bit earlier, talent versus want, will and need. So... You're right. Could be interesting down at Tasmania there, University Stadium there. The Eagles v North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Where do you go with this one? Is this
where's it at?
It's Optus Stadium in Perth.
Yeah, purely because it's in WA, I'll go West Coast. Yeah.
Now, we'll talk about our hot topics in a minute about Harley Reid and not being available, and that might just change things a little bit there. We talked about, obviously, the Suns and St Kilda. I think the Suns there, for me personally. I think they're going to get the job done. They're coming. Sydney v the Cats. This is probably one of 3 games of the rounds that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I'll go Sydney. You just have to at the moment.
Coming off the bye, you're right. They should be starting hot favourites and just got a mountain of youth.
Just
talent,
their ball use, though. That's, for mine, watching Sydney, that's the difference. They've got some elite kicks.
Yes.
Who can thread zones and get through. Goulden, Heaney, Warner, and that Campbell to kick through the zones.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Geelong have got their hands
all of
full.
a sudden.
Yeah, agreed. For me, Essendon v Carlton, Sunday night, twilight.
Yeah, big game Sunday.
It's a huge Sunday.
Yeah, actually.
Talk about
unusual to have such a big game Sunday twilight.
Talk about Super Saturday. We've got Super Sunday this week, leading into obviously Monday's the public holiday.
Public holiday, true. So it is a little bit different.
Yep.
I'll go Carlton.
I can't trust Essendon at the moment.
Yeah.
I know they're sitting, second, third on the ladder at the moment, but I just don't know. They're an enigma, and we'll talk about the enigmas at the moment.
They're the ones we're still not sure of.
Correct. Carlton for me. And then the big one, Collingwood v Melbourne on Monday. Melbourne obviously coming off of a belting. How are they going to react? And then Collingwood obviously losing to the Bulldogs, but being a little bit underdone with a few stars injured. So that's an intriguing one as far as mentally, physically, and both teams really need a win because Melbourne went from 4th or 5th on the ladder to 10th on the ladder.
And their percentage.
dropped massively.
Yeah.
And if
Wow.
they had won on the weekend against Freo, they'd have been sitting third or a game clear in third. So swings and roundabouts, like you've said before, fine line between pleasure and pain.
Yeah, and was, I wasn't following the game because obviously was working at Nord, and at half time someone said, "Hey, Freo are 10 goals up." Shit. Sort of thing.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on with some hot topics, mate. We'll whiz through these ones pretty quickly. The big one, obviously, the Harley Reid tackle for me. Do you think it was fair that that one he got is looking at the suspension as we speak? Looks like West Coast are going to challenge it, but doesn't mean
they're challenging with it 2 games down to 1.
Yep. Does that then? Sorry, that will then preclude him from winning the Rising Star.
Yeah,
Do you see that being fair? Because it's never been a problem before, really.
No, it's been in, but the top players haven't been spent. Corey McKernan was years ago, which I'd realised the Brownlow, obviously, but didn't realise that the Rising Star, the same situation. That's only come out.
Yeah, in the last 7 days,
So it's really more the publicity that all of a sudden the leader's out. If someone's ranked down the order and they're out, no one pays any attention.
It's not only number one, number two as well with Sam Darcy, obviously, with that. What did you make of that challenge? It was a little bit like the
just clumsy.
Was it the Essendon player against Sydney earlier on in the year?
I thought Wright was more unlucky than that. I thought Darcy's was dumb.
Yep.
I thought Peter Wright was ridiculously unlucky, and that was purely the outcome. If the guy had got up there, he probably doesn't even get a game, and he got 4.
Mm-hmm.
Where day out of this, because it was late. He just badly judged.
Yep. Now I know a lot of the suspensions have come recently on outcome based.
Yeah.
The Reid tackle player got up and continued to play the game. Now, that's not to say that in 2 days' time he's got delayed concussion, because we know how that has happened in the past. But if the player plays out the game, then surely that's got to be a little bit more favourable in Reid's.
Well, that's why they've appealed to 2 down to 1 on the medical side of it.
As far as the look of it goes, it didn't look great.
No, on gradings, I immediately went, that's 2. Personally, as
an
someone who's
umpire?
involved,
Yep.
but also someone's involved enough having to know it. I went personally on 2. So did a couple of us actually on that one.
Absolutely. All right. Are 7-year plus contracts too long for clubs to offer players? Should the AFL mandate to limit them to no more than 5? What are your thoughts on that, mate?
I think I think clubs are silly offering that length of time, but you won't come in. Restrained trade would gobble that up. The Players Association would fight that. Just you won't stop it.
Yep.
So and it looks like McLuggage will get 7 years at Brisbane. So
yes, another one that Adelaide might have been looking at to plug a few holes in the back line. But anyway, will we start?
Midfielder.
Midfielder.
Yep.
Will we start to see players stay at clubs for less money for greater team success? Geelong have done it reasonably well, but GWS look like they're starting to do it as well.
Yeah, and there's obviously pressure on Hayward to do the same thing, and we wait and see on that one as well.
I think if Adelaide don't land Hayward, I think they're in big trouble as far as who's going to come.
Well, the word now is Hayward's is more actually thinking of going to Victoria, but you take that with a grain of salt. Wait and see. Look, again, I will be very surprised with Tom Harley there if he doesn't stay at Sydney.
Yep, fair call.
Both ex-Hackney High scholars, etc.
There you go. So they've got some connection.
Yes.
Last week, Alistair Clarkson in a bit of hot water again. Probably just can't help himself, but he was a little bit lucky to get away with this one, wasn't he?
Yeah, but geez, we delve into everything which is uttered, don't we? That it becomes huge, and geez, was it aimed at this and that? And geez, that sort of thing used to happen every 5 minutes, let alone every quarter.
Yes,
old
absolutely.
Days. I think we're jumping at shadows a bit, but that's society in general and everything now. It's different standards. We all, whether we like it or not, with us dinosaurs have had to move.
Yep.
Yes.
With equalisation starting to really ramp up, there's a lot more talk about it. Will we see some changes like a potential 3 grand finals or a wild card rounds?
I think a wild card in terms of 9v10, especially once it goes to 19 and then 20 sides, is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know on the best of 3 grand finals.
Yep.
Even though North reserves have been the guinea pigs this year, the Redlegs have got up there in that one.
That was crazy. They could have actually sat in the bar and had a bit of a beer on the third one because Nord were 2-0 up, weren't they? And then ended up winning the third one.
3 games in a row. It was crazy. That was quite amusing.
Never have been allowed to happen through the SANFL. But anyway, that's a totally another topic. Let's stick with the AFL, mate. Yeah, a really big one for me. Will we see a grand final between Sydney and GWS or Gold Coast and Brisbane before we see a Crows Port grand final or a West Coast Fremantle final?
At the moment, you're saying yes.
This is where I'm at because the northern states have got their academies pretty much all set up to allow them to feed, and I get it. It's not a heartland like a South Australia or WA, but has it gone a little bit too far in that they look like they're a mile ahead as far as their youth coming through, and Gold Coast is probably the classic example at the moment.
Yeah, Gold Coast got another one to come this year.
Yeah,
Leonardo. I want to get his exact pronunciation of his name correct. I'll look that up in a minute.
Yep.
And he was the kid I walked away from that South Australia Allies game and went, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Should the doctor have right away over the umpire if he needs to assess a player after a big hit? I'm talking about the one between St Kilda and West Coast there, the ruckman, last couple of minutes of the game. Doctor's out there trying to do a test. Umpire's sort of almost telling him to get off. Then he's sort of saying, assess him. And then the player's giving them thumbs up, I'm good to go. And then told to move on again. I know we haven't had this happen before, so you're making up rules on the fly a little bit.
Look, what
are your thoughts?
It's a hard one. I feel sorry for the doctor and you will have less people wanting to put their hand up to be medicals at AFL level. So if that player then goes on, plays on, serious injury, is the doctor then liable?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. We are now looking at society has changed, litigious society. We're following America.
Yep.
I'm sorry, doctor's got to come first.
Yep.
Just must.
Totally agree. I think it should be a bit like the blood rule. Game stops, player goes off the ground, player comes on the ground. Once everybody's in position, we start again.
Agreed.
Totally agree. Who's the biggest, greater enigma? St Kilda, Fremantle, Western Bulldogs or Essendon? It's a big one.
It is an interesting one.
It is a big one.
I'm probably going, I've still got the major questions out of Essendon at the moment. I'm thinking St Kilda aren't good enough. Fremantle have been unlucky a couple of times this year. You know, James Ashe is still washing the mark off his shoulder where the ball touched him here against Carlton.
Yep.
And, you know, that's a ball up, 30 seconds to go, and they're still in front, which is what it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been very unlucky, and there was another game as well, and also where could have beaten where they drew against Collingwood, the last scoring shot, and kicks the goal there. They beat Collingwood as well. So
I'm in the same boat with you. Fremantle and Essendon are probably the two that I'm not 100% sure about as to whether you tip them or not tip them and what you're going to get. Fremantle come out and smash Melbourne by 92 points and kick their highest score for, I think, 10 years. And Essendon look like they're going somewhere, but then a couple of little stupid mistakes, and all of a sudden they just don't look as sharp, do they?
Well, Fremantle, where you've got Amos, Dick Tracy, Luke Jackson, Michael Walters. Finally, Michael Walters, that was probably his best game of the year as well. But that should be a forward line capable of kicking scores, and it finally did. Yep. So let's wait and see where they go from here.
Yep. Last one on the AFL. AFL draw was released. We'll take a bit of a deeper dive into that next week. But from the local teams, we've got a showdown at Alberton Oval for round one.
With the SANFL W. AFLW, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it was a success at Norwood. Let's just say it was interesting to see different people at the football and people not understanding that you just can't put two rugs out to take up 50-odd yards for your
seating.
Yeah, for your canopies, and it was different, Pete.
Yep.
It was different.
There you go.
Yes.
I might have to start coming to a few more AFLW games
as
the season goes around. Anyway, all right, let's take a very, very quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk the SANFL, SANFL W, the cricket, which is concerning me a little bit at the moment, but we'll go there, and past player, past legend, Greg Blewett. Really looking forward to that, mate.
I'm Stephen Rowe, and you're listening to the Game On podcast.
All right, top of the table clashes all over the place for the SANFL this weekend. We'll kick off with the Tigers and the Bulldogs there down at Stratorama Oval.
Yeah.
That was a really entertaining game in the end, and Central's hung in there, and then Glenelg got in front, and then Central's came back, and it was a real 1-2 punch, wasn't it?
I went to the game, and Central's really had their chances. Grace, I think he kicked 1-4 and 1 or 2 out on the full, and he dodged real good manoeuvre and should have kicked the goal and would have made it 2 points the difference. 2 minutes, 28 seconds to go. So game on.
Yep.
So, yeah, Central's had their chances well and truly.
Yep. Big loss for Glenelg for the remainder of the year of Hosey.
Yes, ran into Benny Warren before the game down there because his lad was playing in the mini league.
Yep.
And said, hey, Hosey. And then really good to catch up with Jamie Thomas after the game. Jamie's had a few health concerns, dog people, and he got the all clear this week, which we're talking fluid on the brain, some serious stuff. And so great news that Jamie was okay. And Darren Reeves was mates with Jamie and came over, and so had a chat. I'd never spoken to Darren before.
Yep.
And that he also confirmed about Hosey that it was quite interesting. They did the test and thought he was okay, and then the scan showed otherwise. So
fair call. That's a big loss for Glenelg,
Yeah.
but still getting the job done. And then the other top of the table clash, which was highly anticipated by quite a few of us, between the Eagles and Nord, and the Eagles really forced Nord into a handball happy game. That's what it looked like from the outside.
just Nord's use of the ball early and missed the body several times, which should have been Nord kicking at goal and all that. There were 3 in the first quarter and turnover.
Yes.
And a goal down the other end. And that really was the game in a nutshell. Nord were really playing from behind all day. Diatoya for Woodville West Torrens absolutely killed Nord. I thought he was convincingly best on ground. I actually walked out with Paul Hauer, a Eagles man, and said, I very rarely go that much, that guy's best, BOG mine. He said, yep. Woodville West Torrens guys thought the same thing. And so now full credit to Woodville West Torrens.
Absolutely. Coming to the parade is always a tough ask for most teams, but they came to play and they put Nord under a lot of pressure and uncharacteristic mistakes.
Yeah, it was disappointing ball use. Yeah. And O'Neill and Cootie out injured, so the Nord lost a fair bit of their midfield
drive, yep.
And that got a bit exposed where they fell away. The choices and that we weren't batting as deep, and that showed.
Reserves had another good win too, so they have got a little bit of depth there that they can rely on.
9:30, it was an early start, Pete, I can tell you.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't sleep there the night before, although it would have been a bit chilly there up on the scoreboard.
Wasn't warm.
Look, we're Nord men. We obviously love the Redlegs and want to see them go well, but realistically, they're not going to win every game.
No.
And maybe we're to blame because we, for the first time for the year, we actually both tipped them. I was almost going to play that as a little previous throwback. So maybe we're to go against
I'm
tipping
going
them.
for Sturt this week, so there you are.
But no, obviously full credit to Woodville West Torrens. And
too good.
I think we've sort of found our 4 or 5 now that are going to be around the mark. And it's going to be an exciting finish to the year, really. I know we're only sort of halfway.
Yeah.
Or just before halfway through the season, and a lot can happen. But
Harry Grant's
it's
now
exciting.
missed the last. He's now been a test 4 weeks in a row. And that's huge.
Yep.
That he's obviously a bit worse than what they're letting on.
Yep. Obviously, wins to Sturt over Port Adelaide there. West Adelaide over Adelaide. North Adelaide getting up over the Panthers.
Yeah.
That one was being played at the same time on Sunday as the Nord game. All right, let's move on to round 9 for the SANFL. Let's quickly run through these. Panthers v Adelaide.
Yeah, I'll go Adelaide. Although Adelaide, another 3 injuries there, so that'll be 3 out. No, but I'll go. Since it's at South Adelaide, I'll go South.
That's exactly why I'm going South Adelaide. Eagles v the Bulldogs. Another sort of top 5 clash.
Yeah, I'll go Eagles.
Glenelg v the Roosters.
Glenelg.
And Sturt v Nord on Monday.
at Unley.
At Unley.
Well, we've had reasonable record at Unley the last couple of years. Yeah, let's go back to the more successful formula. I'll go Sturt.
I'm going to go Sturt as well. Looking at the ladder very, very quickly, Norwood still maintaining top spot. Woodville, West Torrens, Glenelg, Sturt and Centrals. Like I said, I reckon that 5 is about right.
Yeah. North's still a chance.
West Adelaide and North are the only two that mathematically are the chance. I know it's so early in the season and we don't want to write off teams so early, but the form teams look like the top 5 at the moment. So should be fun. All right, let's move on very, very quickly to the SANFL W. Round 12 games. Sturt getting up over the Bloods by a couple of points.
Yeah, kept that at Sturt, kept this season mathematically alive. So,
interesting there. The Bulldogs absolutely giving Glenelg a little bit of a touch-up.
That was interesting. When I left Glenelg, it was 2-3 to 1. They kicked the goal. Centrals kicked their first goal as I left, and you're thinking at that stage, Glenelg should win this, but then Central's 7 goals in the last quarter, highest scoring quarter in SANFL W history so far.
Okay,
and came all over the top of Glenelg. So Glenelg have fallen away a bit at the moment. Lost to North Adelaide the week before as well.
And I think a draw the week before
so,
that with Norwood. So
bit of question marks on Glenelg at the moment.
The Panthers really taking North Adelaide a little bit to the cleaners there, but understandable where both sides are at the moment.
Start of the season slowly south, but they're clearly the favourites.
They're coming now. And Norwood in a competitive game against the Eagles, but then got overrun a little bit towards the last in the last quarter.
Disappointing because Norwood were up in terms of very, very, very technical free kick. Should have been played on. Second last goal for Woodville West Torrens was pretty crucial there. But Norwood was disappointing in terms of Woodville West Torrens have struggled lately, but they looked slightly cleaner than Norwood did in the game overall as well. I thought Woodville West Torrens' ball movement was slightly better than Norwood's as well.
And a little bit unusual that the reserves played at 9:30 and the ladies played at 11:45 or whatever it was before the league game. So a little bit interesting there that things sort of got changed up a little bit. All right, let's move on to round.
That way at Unley again this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Round 13 matches. West Adelaide v the Eagles.
Yeah. Purely because I was reasonably impressed with Woodville West Torrens on the weekend, I'll go Woodville West Torrens.
I'm going to go the Bloods. South Adelaide v the Tigers. This one is a belting clash.
Big game, but I'll go South Adelaide.
I'll go South Adelaide there as well. The Bulldogs v the Roosters. Centrals v North Adelaide.
I'll go the Bulldogs.
And Norwood v Sturt.
I'll go Sturt.
Go Sturt as well. All right, just looking at the ladder, the top 4 really hasn't changed too much. That half a game just keeps Norwood in the top 4 and probably keeps West Adelaide and Sturt out. But
game and a half.
It is a game and a half, but a couple of rounds to go in the SANFL W, so it's going to be a fast and interesting finish, that's for sure. All right, mate, let's move on to cricket. Are the lack of crowds at the opening few days of the T20 a concern? Are we T20'd out?
Personally, a bit of both on that. Yes. Yes and yes, personally. I'm not... Yeah, I'll sort of have a glimpse, but I'm not shattered that it's not on free-to-air.
Yep.
Whatever. I'm T20'd out.
Is it a case of minor rounds, not a whole lot of interest, but as we start to get towards the finals, maybe a little bit more interest?
Maybe, but even then I know I'm fuddy-duddy in that regard, and T20 just, I think T20's great at local level. I'm more that way.
Yep. And promoting the game in some of the lower ranked countries that don't.
I'm all for
don't
that.
See cricket. I agree. Cricket really looks like a joke when you've got your support staff playing in a game. Yeah, all right, it's a trial game and a warm up game, but that's a joke. That
Mickey
should
Mouse. It's Mickey Mouse. We're talking the elite level.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. At an international and an elite level, you've got support staff filling in, and not just one support staff. There was 2 or 3.
Yeah. That's paying them. Pre-season stuff, not a problem, but we're talking the elite level. It's fast school.
That is fast
and that shows where it's at.
Yep. Last one on the cricket, mate. I know that it's not really cricket season at the moment, considering we're all wearing beanies and jumpers and long pants and high socks, and the air conditioning or the heating's going completely nuts. But I know it's early for the Shield cricket. I know you love your Shield cricket, but do we have any news on some of the full-time coaching gigs? Have we heard anything or anything on the back burner at the moment that you can report on?
It's quite ironic that this is on the running sheet without me knowing beforehand, and I can categorically say no, there is no news, because happened to run into Ryan Harris at the Bay with James Gowns. That was an entertaining 15, 20 minutes.
Absolutely. Would have liked to have been a fly on the wall there.
Yeah, so I can tell you Neville Roberts was interesting on Sunday, where he certainly got the 3 votes best for Nord on Sunday. I'll give you the big tip.
Yep.
But yeah, no, there isn't any news. Ryan doesn't know anymore. And I said, well, there's no way in the world as an interim coach that you can't not be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, there is no news.
Okay. That's right. I just thought I'd put it on the run sheet because our next guest coming up in our Past Players, Past Legends segment, the one and only Greg Blewett.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Past players, past legends, past legends.
Today we're privileged to have on board Gregory Scott Blewett, 46 test matches, 400s. Of course, at first class level, 17,352 runs, an average of 44.49, and recently chosen in the Greater South Australian team. Welcome aboard, Bluey.
Nice to be with you, lads.
So,
thanks, mate, for joining us. We start off with most of our guests where we like to go back where it all started. But before we do that, we did ring you just a minute ago, and we did get the answering service. I know Malcolm was talking about that. He wanted to bring it up, but I'm going to cut his lunch here and ask all about it. Can you just...
it is gold.
It is
love
gold,
it.
yeah.
Well, it's a very old message, and my daughter is mortified that it's still there. So just to give you some sort of context, she's 23 years of age now, and I reckon she recorded it possibly when she was about 5 years of age.
Yeah.
So, I just haven't seen the need to change it.
Oh, it's brilliant, Bluey. I love it
it's
still.
my daughter saying that she's my personal PA, and I'm too busy to come to the phone. So please leave a message.
Absolutely perfect.
It's gold. And obviously remembering Taylor back from, when she was a girl with a sports camp. So I've got a bit of a link there. So I do. You're about the only person I'm very happy when it goes to answering machine, because I piss myself laughing every time.
And it was the first time I heard it, and I thought it was an absolute beauty. Mate, where did you start your junior cricket? Obviously, family involved with cricket as a kid, but where did you start your cricket? Where did you cut your teeth?
Yeah, well, the first memories I've got is up in the Barossa Valley. So Dad moved up there with his job at the time. We lived in Angaston behind the bank up there for about 5 years. So I did my primary schooling up there. So I just remember sort of getting into cricket and football along with other sports as well up in the Barossa Valley at Angaston there. So yeah, I just remember really playing at school with my mates, and then I started playing for Angaston. God, I can't even think of what the team was, whether it was under 10s, under 12s, don't even really know. But that's my first memories of cricket, really.
And then how old were you when you went to Prince's then, Bluey?
So I was in year 10. So I came back down to Adelaide from the Barossa to start my high schooling. So I went to Marden High for years 8 and 9. My folks didn't think I was on the right path, so they thought they'd straighten me up and send me to PAC. So I'm not sure whether that worked, but I was in year 10 when I went to Prince Alfred College.
Marden High, Andrew Zessers, of course, at Marden High. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. He's a big Zess. I remember him. I still remember Zess being there. He's a couple of years older than me, but he was a man mountain back then as well. So, obviously Zess went on to play cricket for South Australia and a few games for Australia.
Yeah, and I admit it's personal. Pete Russo, one of my best mates, he's no longer with us, went to Marden. So, yeah, that Yeah, immediately there as well, Bluey. Now, your record at Prince's is quite ridiculous. I think you still hold records at De Quetterville Terrace High School, mate. So there from your intercol record, go through that, Greg.
Well, I scored centuries in the 3 intercols that I played. So we played, our intercols against St. Peter's. So
Hackney High, yes. Yep.
I played, first 11 cricket from year 10 onwards. And so I believe I'm still the only one to score 3 consecutive hundreds in the intercols.
Yeah, no, I did know that. So I thought, it's still incredible.
That's an impressive record,
isn't it? You think he's been to Prince's, we're talking, the Chappells, Kelvin Smith, both Smiths, etc. Like, there's been some fair players go through there, and it is from year 10 to make 100 in year 10. Of course, Kelvin Smith and Jake Weatherald opened together for Prince's there at one stage, and 100 in year 10 and then through to year 12 was pretty incredible. Of course, there too, when Bluey was at Prince's, and he hated me finding this one out, Pete, he actually also played some football for Nord.
Oh.
Yes, so he actually qualifies as the Nord pass player. He wasn't happy with me when I found that out.
I was nearly going to ask about the footballing thing, but you've cut my lunch this time round, mate. Obviously, footy was on the radar at some stage there, and Malcolm's just spilt the beans there, playing out at Nord.
Yeah, I love my footy. I suppose sort of typical kid growing up. It was cricket in the summer, football in the winter. I played other sports as well. Love my athletics as well. Played a bit of tennis, bit of basketball. Dabbled in golf a little bit when I was younger. Didn't really get into that until I was a bit older. But I absolutely love football. I mean, with my footy, it was a bit like my cricket. I never really, looking back now, I wasn't one of those kids that ever really said to myself or said to other people that I wanted to play for South Australia, or I wanted to play for Australia, or I wanted to play for Norwood, or I wanted to play for the Crows. I just loved playing sport, and I sort of was just on this path, I think, with sport, and I think eventually I found cricket. But played same with my cricket. I started my football up in the Barossa, played for the mighty Anguston Panthers up there, and then came back down to town, and I was in the Nord region. So, I got invited out to play, under 15s, 17s, 19s. And, but I don't know, I just sort of cricket took over. I broke my leg a couple of times playing football as well. So that might have sort of got me a little bit more involved with cricket as well, but absolutely love footy.
Bit similar there with Tim May, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Maisie did his knee with footy.
Do you still follow the SANFL a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, I'm a Central District supporter because of my Barossa upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I rarely get to a game. I might get to one game a season, but I obviously look at the results on the weekends, follow it like that way, but I don't see a lot of live SANFL.
Greg, so from there, obviously you started your district career at Prospect, and you were East Torrens 2 Prospect, wasn't it? Trying to remember.
Started at East Torrens,
sorry. Yep. And that just through your dad, that was just basically through Bob, wasn't it? In terms of just a training.
Dad still, he loved his cricket. So, when he wasn't playing for South Australia's first class career finished, that's when we moved to the Barossa. He played up there all those years as well, came back down to Adelaide and, still wanted to be involved with cricket. So got into the coaching. I think he played a little bit as well, but started at East Torrens, and we lived out that way as well. We lived in Highbury, so I think I was probably close to either the Tea Tree Gully or East Torrens, but just because of Dad coaching there, I started at East Torrens, and then he moved to Prospect with coaching as well. So it was obviously easier for me, still being at school and getting home from cricket practice to follow Dad. So that's how I ended up at Prospect.
Did you find that playing grade cricket, obviously club cricket, grade cricket, was a good stepping stone that really held you in good stead when it came to moving into, obviously, the South Australian side?
Oh, absolutely. I was always one of those kids that I think Dad especially wanted to push me to keep going up in the grades, and I was quite young when I was playing for East Torrens C grade. So I was playing with men at an early age, and then I got into A grade prospect team when I was still fairly young as well, and that was a real eye opener. Coming up against a grumpy Sam Parkinson and a few of those old boys giving me a hard time. I had to sort of, really stick up for myself and sort of gave me a taste for it, I suppose. And pretty quickly I realised that I had the game to compete at that level. And then it was just a matter of, how far I thought I could go with cricket.
And then so you debuted for South Australia after I think you made 100 early in the year for prospect, wasn't it? In a district game to virtually get you picked, and it's 91, 92.
Yeah, I reckon, Malcolm. Like, I'm terrible with years, so
Yep.
I'll probably get this wrong. But I went away with the under-19 Australian team to England, and I did really well over there. I was one of the leading run scorers in the team. Back, and I think I was probably starting to get on the radar a little bit with South Australia, but I got some runs straight away. I think with prospect might have got a couple of hundreds in a row, and then bang, all of a sudden I was in the South Australian first class team.
Just quickly going back on one thing, how important was your Australian Cricket Academy scholarship in 1990? And what did that actually entail? Yep.
Huge, mate. That was huge. That sort of, I reckon, really hit home to me that I wanted to be a professional cricketer, and we had a couple of really good players in that intake: Warney, Damien Martin, Justin Langer, guys like that. And Damien Martin at the time, he was the standout junior.
Yeah, I knew he was incredible junior. Yeah,
he was. He was brilliant.
Yeah,
for Australia as well. But I quickly learned that where I needed to get my game to, and I always say that he was. I've had some really good coaches, but he was honestly the biggest influence on my career, because I really looked at him and thought, that's where I needed to get to. So at that age, and then to be able to train a couple of times a day, and I think it really did speed my progress up a lot with the academy being here. Well, not just because it was here in Adelaide, but just to be able to use the facilities and play the games that we did, it really did help me a lot.
And of course, you burst onto the scene. Those of us who follow Shield cricket, which unfortunately isn't huge numbers, we know that, with the Australia A setup in 94, 95, that was a big part of your success, Bluey. And of course, then there was a Shield game against New South Wales where you took wickets. You took 4 for as well. And out of that, for Adelaide Uni people who are out there listening, that happened to be Sam and Sondra Nicholas wedding, and let's just say Sondra, a very attractive lady, and got a big cheer from the crowd walking through. And while it wasn't huge numbers at a Shield game, it was a few there on this Sunday, and Mark Taylor happened to get out next ball, and Sondra was going around all night that she'd dismissed Mark Taylor that night. So that quick bit of trivia there, Bluey. But the influence of Australia A on your career, Bluey.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things I reckon, Malcolm. Like I burst onto the scene, but I think my first season was okay. Like I got off to a good start, and then I fizzled out a little bit towards the end, and might have scored 500-600 runs, I think, in my first year. And then the next year, I think I started quite well, and I made a big 100 in Melbourne against Victorian, and I reckon that was during the Adelaide Test match, and the scores kept coming over the PA system, and I think that sort of helped me a lot as well. But then ended up having a good second season, got into the Australia A side, and I mean, at the time, I was just playing some really good cricket. So, fortunately, I was able to get some runs for Australia A, and bang, all of a sudden, people are talking about me playing, a test match or the home test match in Adelaide against England. And I didn't really take it that seriously. And then all of a sudden got the phone call and I'm playing test cricket.
And batting number 6, so your bowling did certainly help you getting picked originally, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was bowling a fair bit for South Australia because we were playing 2 spinners and 2 quicks. So I sort of had to bowl a few overs. Then for Australia A, it was all 50 over cricket, so I'd bowl a few overs there as well.
Were you involved with the Australia AV, the Australian side?
Yes. Yep.
How important? We've obviously Malcolm's just asked how important was Australia A, but
That's
how
right,
important was Australia A in getting that going to assist the development of players? When really there hadn't been an Australian A team that had been sort of put head to head against the A side, I suppose.
I think it just gave us a little bit to strive for because, as you've sort of alluded to, the depth in Australian cricket at that time was huge, absolutely huge. Like there was probably at least a dozen of us batters lining up, just getting runs after runs. I could go through lots of names. But,
Hayden Law, it was crazy
Lehman,
how strong we were here, Buff, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Martin Love, guys like this that were really good players. So I think it just, really gave us something to, like the Australia A team just, and then gave us some exposure at international level. So, for me, it was huge. And I think, once I went into the Australian team, at least I'd sort of met a few of the Aussie boys and it just gave me, a little bit more level of comfort, I suppose.
And let's go to your test debut. You batted beautifully. You were 70-odd not out overnight, I reckon. Go through that whole experience. I reckon the General Havelock might have benefited that night as well, Bluey.
Well, I think I was in the 90s.
I thought it was
I reckon
less
I was
than
closer
that.
to 100.
Okay. Well, then Healy got out, and of course, then you found out that McDermott was in hospital, and the batting with Macca. But also in that, we'll go through. I'll let you answer the whole question. Then afterwards, you also may have glimpsed towards the people walking in and walking down to the Magic Cave after you got 100. Might have recognised a couple of mates and thought, what the hell are you nicking off? And then you thought, oh, bugger it, I'd be doing the same thing. Along those levels as well, Bluey, from the Magic Cave side of it.
Yeah, that was part of my routine, really. Like, in between deliveries was, like, I was very conscious of, switching on, switching off. So, obviously, I only have to, concentrate for just short periods of time, as the bowler's running in, you face the ball. And then in between deliveries, I'd sort of quickly process what just happened, and then it gave me a little bit of time to switch off, and I'd like to just sort of pick out a few faces in the crowd or see what was going on or where people were sitting. So that was just the way of helping me sort of switch off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the Adelaide Test is the Adelaide Test, isn't it?
Yes,
it's just as people go to watch cricket, but they also go to socialise. So got 100, and I saw a lot of good mates, gave me a bit of a clap, and then they were straight back out the back. So good luck to them.
And, because didn't Macca then walk out and tell you, well, you better hurry up because McDermott's not batting and I'm not picking Devon Malcolm out, because we all thought, what the hell are you doing slogging for it, Bluey? And then the word came out, well, you better hurry up, and you did.
Well, Devon Malcolm was bowling pretty sharp at the time, and there was some reverse swing, and I knew Macca's capabilities with the bat, and I think he got through a couple of deliveries, and then maybe another over, and he just came down, and his eyes were spinning like that. He was like an out of body experience, and he said, "Mate, you better get these runs because I can't hang on much longer." So it wasn't one of those situations where, your partner was going, mate, I'll do whatever I can. I'll wear them on the body. I'll do, we'll just got to get you to your 100. It was pretty honest feedback. So I decided that I had to sort of, try and take the game on and try and get the runs as quickly as possible, which, I mean, I only just got there, if you remember. I was 102 not out, and then Macca had his stumps splayed everywhere. So I only just got there.
Now, I have to ask, most people don't get to experience this, but standing in the middle of the Adelaide Oval after scoring 100, what's that feeling like?
Oh, no, it was brilliant. It was one of those moments, I think, where you just think, shit, this is really happening. It all did really happen quickly with Australia A and then my selection. And I was in great form. Like I was in one of those purple patches where every time I batted, I scored runs basically. And then I got to 100 and, I'm standing there and I remember being really conscious of not trying to over celebrate and just trying to be humble. It was my first test match. Everything just came together. So I tried to sort of soak it all in but it was a dream really, like Ashes test match in Adelaide. The weather was beautiful, great mates, family, everything, it just worked out perfectly. So I just tried to soak it in, but it was one of those really surreal moments where you're standing there with your bat up just going, shit, this is test cricket. I've just made 100 on debut. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, apart from the result at the end of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you probably arguably actually even better in Perth. You probably almost say that your innings in Perth technically may have been your best you ever batted, Bluey.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful pitch. And two of the grounds around Australia where I, did play well in Shield cricket as well is Brisbane and Perth, along with Adelaide Oval. So, it was just, again, it was just a case of walking out. I was in a zone. I just felt like I was going to score runs again. And I did. I think I can't remember how many deliveries I faced to get 100, but I remember it being a reasonably quick 100 for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I agree. I probably batted better in Perth than what I did in Adelaide.
Going through it, we'll go through a few other areas in your career and move from spot to spot, might drift in that. Then the tour of England, and being the thing where Mark Taylor kept his spot, really, just because he was captain. How was that experience and that? And to his credit, he did come through. Let's not there, but he got more opportunities than probably anyone else would have. How was that experience, Bluey?
To be quite honest, mate, England wasn't as bad because he got runs in that first test match. He got 100 in the second innings at Edgbaston. It was probably more South Africa, I reckon, in the lead up to the Ashes test match where it didn't affect me at all. Like, I love Tubby and I just felt like he was going to come through. I think there was starting to be maybe a few little, comments here and there from other players, but it was just one of those periods, I think. But it didn't affect me at all, honestly. It was, I think I was starting to bat at number 3 for Australia, so I'd sort of just come up for that Ashes. So, but again, I was in that large partnership with Tubby at Edgbaston where I got a few runs as well. He got runs, and but it was probably more South Africa in the lead up to the Ashes.
And then, so we'll go through a couple of areas of your career where probably. How about playing, world-class spin? You probably struggled a bit against Mushtaq and that. You reflect back afterwards on the spin bowling side of things. Is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh, probably not so much at the time. I think I was probably guilty out of not sort of doing enough things at training in the lead up to that. Because, I was thrown into a situation where, I was batting at number 6 for Australia, and I'd never, ever batted anywhere else but opening the batting or batting at actually probably not even at number 3. I reckon for my whole career, I'd always open the batting. So to walk out and have world-class spinners bowling with men around the bat was a really daunting thing for me. So I learned pretty quickly. I think, in the next couple of years, I really improved my play against spin bowling, but I really had a couple of big, bad experiences because of my lack of experience, I suppose, at doing it. So I think now, the times I've had in coaching, I wished I had probably trained a little bit better or sort of experienced a little bit more leading up to that, really at different levels of training.
Players these days obviously have video footage and coaches and sub-coaches and whatever else that are looking at their game. Do you think you would have benefited a little bit if somebody had sort of sat you down with some footage and said, look, this is where we want you to improve? Or was that starting to happen through the Australian team at that stage?
No, there wasn't much then at all. We sort of had to rely on, what was on TV, really. So, if there was a test series in India versus England, then obviously try and watch it if you were playing some of those sides coming up. So that was about the extent of it. But I think now, with, say someone like the mystery spinners, now you can sort of, get the close-ups from different angles, and you can work it out, really. Whereas, back then it was like, you were trying to work it out as you were facing the bowlers. So no, it was a lot different back then for sure.
Now back to South Africa, we can't gloze over that. Your highest Test match score of 214, the partnership of 385 with Steve Waugh and batting a whole day, which is a pretty incredible achievement. Go through that game, Blue.
Yeah, that was one of the great days. Batting with someone like Steve, who was playing some great cricket at the time, and playing against South Africa, who we know were going to be an emerging team. So, that was the first Test match of that particular series, and we thought that was just a great opportunity to not only win that first Test match, but that would go a long way to being able to have a really good tour. So, again, I think one of the things I really learnt from my old man was, in some of the stuff that he said to me, was which always resonated with me, was that once you got to 100, the runs after that were going to be the easiest runs that you score. And I sort of tried to take that on board, and I was able to, I think, mainly because of my fitness and I suppose, a level of concentration, I was able to bat long periods of time. So, we just put our heads down, and to not be able to lose a wicket for the whole day, obviously just, rode South Africa into the ground. But looking back, to be able to do that with one of Australia's legends was a really good achievement, I suppose.
Were there any chances, any half chances? Did they let you off the hook?
It was a long time ago.
Yep.
I can't remember. I mean, there was some close calls. I can't remember getting dropped. I might have. I just can't remember. But I remember the second new ball, or might even be the bloody third new ball. But I remember Alan Donald really challenging me with a new ball, and I was probably lucky to get through that period. But I can't remember getting dropped. But again, I might have.
And as a cricket nut, though, to be and obviously older Bluey, but not to mention, in terms of your dad, Bob is one of the most ruthless competitors I've ever seen in sport. I can remember being at a district game and him and KG, and I'll be honest, nowadays both probably would have got about 6 games each with what it is nowadays and all that. But geez, Bob was ruthless. So yeah, Bluey's probably actually asked me a little bit along the years, because he said, well, you obviously saw Dad and all that. So, but yeah, no, Bob didn't have Greg's natural ability, but geez, he was a competitor. Bluey, one other thing in terms of just still on Australian-wise, the 95 tour of West Indies, and it was actually interesting, probably almost your biggest impact on that series was the one shot. It wasn't only the partridge, but the one shot off Curtly Ambrose.
Yeah, well, that was so again. That was a challenging series. That was my first overseas tour with Australia. So for some reason, I went to the Caribbean because of their bowlers, thinking, I was going to be obviously facing a lot of fast bowling, but I thought the pitches would be suited to fast bowling, but they were really low, slow,
Yeah.
A lot of reverse swings. So again, batting at number 6, I was really challenged. And then, I was lucky to get some runs in the last Test match where we were able to clinch the series, which was, one of the great highlights of my career. But I remember, Curtly Ambrose gave me a bit of a working over, and he hit me in the gloves a couple of times, and my hands were killing me. And I remember I was thinking, right, no, I'm actually going to try and take him on here. And I remember he pitched one up, and I drove it down the ground. Wasn't a bad shot, and then he went short, and I don't know, instinctively just pulled it, and
it was a beauty,
smashed it for 4, and that sort of really got me going in that Test match, and ended up making a few. So I watching Curtly Ambrose growing up, I was like, everyone seemed to struggle a bit against Curtly, which I did as well, but that particular day I was able to get a couple away. So, it was good.
Back on Curtly Ambrose, and we can't not ask the question, what did you think in Perth when the ball, what was your first reaction when you got with, and we'll get Pete will find it, where you copped the grubber, the unplayable grubber. What did you think as it hit the stumps?
No, well, what can you think? What can you do? I mean, again, did that just happen? And because there were a lot of balls that misbehaved that particular Test match. I mean, the cracks were huge, but not many did something different on the stumps.
Yeah.
Like, I think I was the only one to get bowled off a grubber like that. And
I reckon that's still you're still the in terms of a lot of, and it always comes up in jokes when you're commentating, and all that sort of stuff, Bluey. But it's probably the one where you go, well, that's just ridiculous. Like, there was carry on at the G at one stage with Greg Chappell when the G was terrible, when the Test match against India, and when Gavaskar walked off and all that. That's a bit earlier on, obviously. But I reckon that's still the dismissal, where the one where you just, you still jaws dropped.
That's just,
it was just ridiculous. It was just ridiculous.
What do you do? I remember in the first innings, like, really battling to be out. Like, I occupied the crease, but I really struggled to score at a good rate. And when I walked off that first innings in Perth, I went, no, if I bat like that again in the second innings, I'll get the same result. So I really made a decision, second innings, that I was going to come out and try and, be a lot more proactive and take the bowling on more. And then to get that first ball, I was just walking off just going, well, it wasn't meant to be. That Test match. So that's all you can do, I think.
Oh, I thought you took it really well. I reckon would have been some players who would have spat the dummy and thrown the bat and all that. So
toys out of the cot. I think
you actually took it very well.
Yeah. We thank Greg Blewett there for his time. We are going to split that interview into a couple of different sections, but we'll certainly provide some video footage there about some of his exploits and that wicket where it grubbered along the ground and obviously becomes a bit of a focal point each cricketing summer. So we'll get that and obviously participating in the MND as well. Very, very important to the cause. All right.
Happy days.
All right, let's kick off Happy Days with happy birthday to Willie Rioli, known as Junior Rioli, from the 19th of August 2022 until July 2023, born on June 4th, 1995. Having initially been drafted by the West Coast Eagles, he attended Xavier College. Some pretty good footballers have come out of Xavier College, mind you, in Melbourne, and was drafted by the West Coast Eagles with their 3rd selection and 5th overall selection in 2016 draft. He's sort of been a little bit of a journeyman, hasn't he, Willie Rioli?
Yeah, and played a bit here at Glenelg, I reckon, on memory.
He did, yes.
And probably that was really almost where he got picked up from, that he was very good at Glenelg. So, and it journeyman, but geez, Port missed him on Friday night, Saturday night.
Thursday night. Thursday night, yeah, no, it's a
fair. Remember the days.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, and it showed, and I thought, he might be a bit more important than realised. So, yeah.
He made his debut in the 51-point win against the Western Bulldogs at Etihad Stadium, or Marvel Stadium these days, in round 2, 2018. Coming from the Rioli family, his cousin Dean Rioli of the Essendon Football Club, Cyril Rioli of the Hawthorn Football Club, and Ronnie Burns from his mother's side. First cousin once removed from the Richmond Football Club, and club player Daniel Rioli, and nephew of Morris Rioli. There's a fair lineage there, and I thought it was important to talk about Willie Rioli as part of our happy birthday this year, because the SANFL obviously did their First Nations round on the weekend. Some fantastic footage of some of the smoking ceremonies was well done by a lot of the clubs, and obviously pre-match functions and everything else. So Rioli requested a trade to Port Adelaide at the conclusion of the 2022 season, and the move was sort of not exactly well received by the CEO, Trevor Nisbet, describing it as bitterly disappointing. But I think Port Adelaide have got themselves a gun when he's on the field. Yeah,
look, he's had some controversy moments, well and truly.
Absolutely.
Probably lucky that he didn't miss some more football.
Yep.
And that, allegedly, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Personal opinion.
Yes.
But he's an important player, no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on. 1985 cricket. West Indian cricket batsman Sir Vivian Richards scores 300 in a day on the way to 322 in a tour match. I'm still trying to get over 300 in a day at Warwickshire. 42 fours, 8 sixes in 258 balls. Wow.
Isaac Vivian Alexander Richards, one of the all-time greats. Of course, the famous story where he played and missed a few balls in a row, and the bowler sledged him and told him what the ball looks like and all that, and he hit him out of the ground, and you've told the bowler, well, you know what it looks like, go and fetch.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is. You've said that one before, but every time you do, I love it. Absolutely love it. It's classic. Let's move on to basketball. 2018 Golden State Warrior guard Steph Curry breaks Ray Allen's NBA Finals record for the most three-pointers with 9 in the Warriors' 122-103 Game 2 win over Cleveland. 9 seems a very small number, but we are talking finals, though.
Yeah, that's still huge.
Yeah.
That's an enormous influence on the result.
Yeah, and especially considering, they're scoring, 122 to 103. So, very, very good. All right, let's move on to tennis, being very topical at the moment. 1962, we're going back a fair way here. French Open Championship men's tennis and all-Australian final. Rod Laver beats Roy Emerson 3-6. 2-6, 6-3, 9-7, 6-2 in the second leg of Laver's first Grand Slam.
Yeah, Roy Emerson made a few finals over that time, and just probably a bit unlucky.
Well, he ran into some good players.
Yeah.
And a little bit like that with Leighton Hewitt, running into Federer and Nadal at the peak of their powers, really.
And, of course, tennis at the moment. Alex de Minaur into the quarters.
We are going to talk about that one in a minute in our extra time big finish.
Yep.
And then to finish us off, 1989 sports broadcasting legend in America, Vin Scully, broadcast 23 innings in 2 different cities in the one day. That's a pretty fair effort.
That's a fair effort, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Here we are complaining about having to do a couple of hours here or there. 23 innings would have gone a while. Would have gone a fair while, and in 2 cities as well. That's the most impressive part. All right, let's get into the extra time big finish.
Extra time big finish.
All right, let's kick off today with tennis. French Open has started to go Alex de Minaur's way a little bit. Struggled through a couple of early round matches, but now is really finding his feet.
And now plays You pronounce this better than me, Pete. You can
Alexander Zverev.
Yeah, that's better than me. Now plays him who's come off. Zverev's come off a 5-set win this morning. So
Anything's possible.
Yeah, so I think it's scheduled at the moment. There's yet to be the time announced.
Yes.
But tomorrow night.
Yep.
Our time, so in the quarters. So
now, getting over Daniel Medvedev on clay is a huge fillet for him as far as taking that next step and really not announcing himself because he's been around that top 10 mark for a little while now, but just the confidence that he can take in taking a big scalp like that.
Yeah, so he's a chance. He certainly seems to have progressed. He seems to have got a bit more confident, added a little bit more to his bow. He's probably been a little bit more aggressive and finishing points. So, yeah, look, we wish him all the best. We know how he fell away in that Australian Open.
Yes.
We can't forget that was the mental block where he fell away there. But at least again, probably doesn't hurt. He's underdog again next, which probably doesn't hurt. So,
and he's the first Australian in 17 years since Leighton Hewitt to make a quarter-final at the French Open. So
at Roland Garros,
he's going in with a little bit of form. But for Alex, a young fan in the fan,
that was entertaining.
It was sitting through a rain delay, almost sitting there for 10 hours, supporting him, and then Alex repaying the favour and trying to find out a name on social media, and they got them together. And
it was good.
It's almost like his lucky charm.
Yeah, and it was really good the way Dimona praised him and all that, and you can see these two ending up, and all that. So
it's going to be a really, really good story, isn't it? Obviously, we move on to the NBA Finals. Finally, we feel like this final series has been going on for a long time. Yeah. But the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Celtics. Game 1 starts on Thursday, so about the time when we're releasing our podcast. But game 2 on Sunday, Game 3 on Wednesday, and Friday by next week. So by this time next week, we should have a little bit of an idea as to how that's going. I'm probably favouring the Boston Celtics at the moment.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the NRL. Not too much. We're not going to cover too much as far as the NRL goes, except for the State of Origin coming up, mate.
Yeah, so that starts. It starts this week.
It does. Always a big time.
It is. They do whatever you think of rugby, whatever they do that superbly. It is bigger than Ben-Hur. So look forward to that this week.
I'll certainly be tuning in and watching it. Who are you tipping, mate? Queensland or New South Wales?
I'll go Queensland, but I don't really care either way. I just want to see. Want to see 1-1 and then go to the side.
Fair call. You're sitting on the fence. I'm a massive Queensland fan. I want Queensland to continue their winning form.
Yeah,
but
that's fair enough.
There is going to be some change. So New South Wales are going to come out firing. But like you, I wouldn't mind seeing it going to a Game 3. All right, let's move on to soccer. The Matildas played here in Adelaide to a full house. We're very lucky to get away with a 1-1 draw in the end.
Yes.
95th minute.
Yeah, and the goalie probably should have caught that, and it would have been over. So, the spill and the equaliser. But, then got up.
Obviously, the game in Sydney there, 75,000 plus, almost 77 or 78,000.
Yeah, the injuries are pretty unlucky. Sam Kerr and also there's another one as well. They are unlucky there.
Yep. Do you think they got a reasonably good workout against China? And
it did seem that way.
Holds them in good stead. Yeah. They looked flat here in Adelaide, but they looked a bit more energised in Sydney. So maybe that's a case of them building towards the Paris Olympics. Hopefully. All right, let's move on to a couple of quick questions. Speaking of the Olympics, they kick off on July 26th. What sports are on your radar?
Oh, look, it's always the swimming. Purely because Australia's always a chance there and all that. Look, you then find that you value the athletics, the 100 metres. We all love that. Look, I love the marathon.
Yep.
Obviously, Jess Trengove being around, being competing in terms of athletics in general is always grabbed my fancy there with the Trengove connection there. So, there's that side of it. And even Wally's no longer involved at that level, but Raf Sturck, a mate playing in 3 Olympics. I've always followed the water polo ever since, purely because through Raf. So
that connection.
But just in general, then the cycling, you sort of jump aboard at the time.
Yep.
Really.
Yeah, I know we're a fair way out, but I thought I'd just flag it now because obviously as we get a bit closer, we're probably going to find out who's in and who's out of some of these squads if they haven't already been done. Tennis is the only sport that I know of goes past midnight to complete games. What are your thoughts, mate?
They seem to, at Roland Garros, just keep going. Just doesn't seem to matter. It's just a bit bizarre.
Well, Djokovic was saying that I'm so pumped up and worked up after a game of finishing at about 3 or 4 a.m. that if there's a club opening, I'm going and partying.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
a weird one that tennis just can't quite get it right, can they?
Yeah, it is weird. I suppose Roland Garros, the matches seem to go for clay in general.
Clay is a slower surface.
But and then a 5-setter just seems to go, for longer than Blue Hills. So, and I don't want to take away. I'd hate them to go back best of 3.
Yep.
I'm a big traditionalist in that way, but yeah.
I think tennis have got it right as far as the Grand Slams are best of 5. We get that. Does that mean that they start a day earlier?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe even 2 or 3 days earlier.
Yeah, if they're anticipating.
Stagger it a bit more.
Just a little bit. Very, very interesting. And the last one, mate, we did talk about it with Greg Blewett, and it'll probably be on part 2 of the episode, but we need to bring it up. MND, obviously, the big freeze this weekend. Big 10 at the MCG, but also at the Adelaide Oval. We cannot understate the contribution that is crucial to medical research, as people are going to see on the live feed that we've got going on at the moment. You're wearing your Big Freeze beanie. I haven't got mine on today. I do apologise for that, but it is an important research that we must get involved with.
It's absolutely huge. And look, personally, obviously Chris, but wish Stewie Verrill, mate, played in a premiership side with him for Adelaide Uni in 1986. Wish Stewie all the best. Love to see his son Will debut for Melbourne.
Yep.
And just wish Stewie all the best. And obviously, Chris Krieg having lost Chris and Damien Lane.
Yep.
On that side of it, we spoke to Bluey about losing his mum Shirley.
Yep.
The Palms, David, Jenny, and Michael Palm, who listened to our show as well.
Yep.
Lost their dad Jim. But back then you still weren't even aware. We're now 3-0 down to her. It's then the promotion that it's got and the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
2 people are diagnosed and 2 die every day of motor neuron. And that was through the research I did on the article I wrote on Chris Krieg.
Yes.
And motor neuron actually rang me and asked if they could use the article. And obviously I said,
absolutely.
Obviously I'll be privileged.
Yep.
And that side of things. So that was a bit of an eye-opener there. And look, it's huge. The slide and the freeze and the money raised is fantastic. And
yep.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the bone.
Absolutely. Mate, we might leave it on that note. We've had a huge episode. We thank Bluey for his time. We're going to leave the good, the bad, the ugly for this week. I think they're relatively self-explanatory. As per usual, we promise to do better, mate. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, mate.
See you,
Thanks,
mate.
Bluey.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.